Whose hands were those? That's important to know.
Yeah,
That's a
that is
preview
true.
of tomorrow night.
Yes, it could have been anybody's. I know it's not Cooper Flagg's, though. That's for
No.
sure.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that and much more. We had the two big games from last night. Everybody's here joining us from the Playbook ATS podcast. So this is, of course, live. If you would like to, anybody that's joining us live, if you have any comments, questions, just go right ahead, obviously, and join us. Otherwise, for the on-demand listeners, you can also let us know what's on your mind. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of these shows, including whenever they're live. Make sure you hit the notification bell because that'll let you know and indicate whenever a live show is popped up like this one, which we did warn you was going to happen, but we had no idea what time. So we're recording this right now, actually live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Vegas time. So let's get right into it, fellas. What'd you think about the game last night? We're going to start off with the big one. Houston coming back to beat Duke. They were down by 9 with 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. And we're actually going to go over the whole sequence there. But before we go over the whole sequence, I just wanted to get your initial thoughts. Andy?
Well, I'm out of Scotch tape. I had a whole bunch of Houston tickets that I had to put together about 15 minutes after game time last night because it looked pretty bleak. It looked pretty hopeless, but it's a credit to Houston and their experience. And one of the things I thought going into the game would be, would Houston's defense have an effect upon the youth of the Duke team, generally, especially the freshmen? And yeah, it took about 38 minutes for that to show up, and I think that we could see that the Houston's defense, which was decent all night, but was especially effective at the end when I think it may have caught Duke a little bit by surprise, and they didn't have the experience to react.
Yeah, Andy hits it on the head there, Mark. And we talked about this on Wednesday's show about that was something that we had to find out about these young Duke kids and how if they were going to be able to handle the pressure. They did get the pressure and they just didn't handle it very well.
It's all about experience this time of the year, guys. And I think we clearly saw Kelvin Sampson outcoach John Shire, especially down the late stages of the basketball game. It's easy to say that now in hindsight, but it was true. And it was all because of the players with all that valuable experience that they had. And nice to join you guys for the morning. I'm having my morning cup of coffee right now.
I was in shock. Of course, I had Houston, and I got to go back to podcasts that Greg and I did weeks and weeks ago where we picked the Final Four, and we actually picked Florida against Houston in the final game, which is unbelievable that we did that. And it worked out. I was sitting there. I had a lot of tickets on Houston, no question, but I didn't tear them up, so I didn't need the Scotch tape. But I had +6, and I didn't think I was going to lose the cover, but I never. I mean, I was in shock. I was in shock the way that game ended.
Tony?
Fun game. I'm lounging around on a Sunday morning watching soccer, but this is strategic, the outfit, because I'm mourning my Auburn loss, which we'll talk about in a little bit because they were my national champion. But I had Houston in there. Great game, great comeback. And obviously I'll be rooting for my UCF Knights today in the college basketball crown on Sunday afternoon after the women's championship. But look, here, I'll just sum up my thoughts on this with this stat. Obviously, Duke was in control most of the game. Gutsy effort by Houston. Since Steele's, and this is credit to The Athletic. So definitely give them credit for this one because I hadn't seen it. Since steals became an official stat in 1986, NCAA tournament teams are 335-1 in games where they beat an opponent in field goal percentage, free throw attempts, assists, turnovers, and steals. So fewer turnovers. Duke did all that last night, and they're the one out of 336 that lost.
Wow.
I
guess
I mean, the whole game, it just looked like they were the better team. They're taller, they're rangy, they're very athletic. They got the
Cooper
best
Flagg's a cheat code, man.
It just didn't look like Houston could stay with them. I mean, they couldn't get around the height. I mean, Duke is a very good team. I mean, if you take away the inexperience, I just don't think anybody could beat them. But and then in the beginning of the game, when they were talking, like Charles Barkley and those guys were talking about how buff these kids are for Houston. They work out in the gym. They work out the football team. They're really physical. and all of that with the experience, and Sampson with his experience, it all showed up right at the end, but it took like almost the whole game to get it there.
Well, physically, you saw that Houston could hang with Duke in a way that most teams weren't going to be able to. I think Florida probably would have because of their size. But Duke started out 7 for 21, and that was a product of Houston's wingspans, because they're tricky to play against. Even though Tugler picked up 2 fouls, you've got 6'7", 6'8" guys with 7'5", 7'6" wingspans. That's just tough to adjust to if you're on a basketball court. And at the same time, Houston got absolutely nothing from Milo Suzan. In fact, I made a comment to somebody I was watching the game with. If they got anything from Uzan, Houston would be up. This was prior to their 7-minute without a field goal for Duke. It really got Houston back in the game. But you got your point guard who has had tournaments, games in this tournament where he has been the catalyst, give you absolutely nothing, end up in foul trouble. And I think he finished with like 7 points and 3 assists, and they still won that game. So just a credit to Houston not letting go of the rope. And LJ Cryer got it going there late first half to get them within 6 at the break. That was key.
And keep in mind, too, Houston did out-rebound Duke's 38-29, which was actually the same number that Florida out-rebounded Auburn, 38-29. So let's now take a look at how it all transpired down the end. And don't worry, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to the Florida game as well. So this is really where it all happened. Duke is up 6, and let's see how it all transpires here. So this was huge because you get a big rejection there, and Houston gets the ball. Now, this is the big 3 by Sharp because it starts.
Oh, that was huge. Yeah.
So this starts it all, and now after this 3, we're going to get the.
That's the one that gave you hope that if they didn't win the game, they were going to cover.
Right.
And then any comeback in basketball needs a steal, and Houston got it.
Yeah, Houston had possession arrow. Houston had that first, because right before this, I believe, was the ball that was batted out of bounds that they stopped the game to review. And it was very clear that Houston's pressure was going to affect this play. I was actually saying, because at this point, I believe there was 8 fouls. If you get the front end of 1-and-1, the one guy that you want to foul is Tyrese Proctor, and that came to fruition going forward here in a little bit. Before this, because this was after the controversial foul call, which you're showing us here, the Jawan Roberts 1-and-1, which at that point, Roberts is a 60-something% free throw shooter. I even said this, I'd rather have the ball than him at the line. To his credit, he made both free throws. That was enormous, but a lot of people upset about Cooper Flagg getting whistled for over the back. I looked at it after the game. Cooper hears that whistle, otherwise he ends up with the ball. So the ball ended up in Houston's hands, but only because there was a whistle, and Flagg basically turned around like, what? You're calling me for that? You have to call that.
Yeah, anybody that wants to, and look, I've done it before. Anybody that wants to say that Duke gets all the calls, this is something that Duke fans can shove right in your face.
For sure.
Because I agree. I thought it was a bad call. And look, when you get comebacks, you got to get the steals, you got to get the breaks, and Houston had all of them, plus Duke just didn't handle it very well. And so, look, I want to go around the horn. What did you guys think was going to happen here at the free throw line? I didn't think he was going to make the first one.
Well, it was unbelievably.
What did you think, Mark? Did you think he was going to make it?
Free throw shooter. He makes both free throws.
Yeah.
And also out of this whole sequence coming down the stretch here, it seemed like Cooper Flagg was going to have his Christian Laettner moment, but he missed a shot.
He got a great look over Rob.
He sure did. He had a great look on it. And you almost for sure you saw the ball going in the net, but it didn't happen. And, hence we're talking about Houston going to the championship game and not Duke.
I thought that he was going to make the first but miss the second.
Okay.
We were going to end up having a tie.
Overtime?
Well, that became a real possibility depending upon how the final 18, 19 seconds played out. But, yeah, I thought that was a real possibility. But then again, maybe that's the experience. And, sometimes when you hear that these guys are 62, 64% free throw shooters, you really need to break it down. the first 30 minutes of the game versus the last 10 minutes of the game, because there are a lot of guys who, they'll just go up to the line and they'll throw it out there and we doesn't really matter all that much. We've got 10 minutes to go. And then there are and others then they are able to, in the last few minutes when the pressure is on and the points really mean something, they're able to come through. So I think that's the kind of, when you're looking at stats and everything, that's the kind of split that I would like to see. It's kind of like clutch hitting in baseball, however you define that. There are some guys who just seem to come through when it matters.
Both winners are down at half, and the coaches made adjustments, and they worked. The adjustments were better, and it's just like who sang the song? Don't Stop Believing. Was that Journey?
Yes.
Years ago.
Yeah.
That's what this team is. They just never gave up.
Yeah, that was a great quote, live on the air from Sampson late. If you quit, that's when you can't win anything, and that's when you've lost. I think something like that. And his team never quit. I thought Duke took themselves out of their offense a little bit, and that was really starting to milk the clock. Greg, that first highlight that you showed there was a shot late in the clock where where Flag got, or I believe it was Kneppel, got blocked at the rim.
Yes.
But the shot clock was at 3 seconds because they were milking clock at that point.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of Houston doing what they do defensively and Duke really missing out on that flow. And I mentioned on our Wednesday show, if Tyrese Proctor shoots the ball the way he has this entire tournament and most of the season, it's a wrap on for everybody else in the country. He had an off game and he missed that front end of a 1-0.
Let me throw this in there, guys, real quick here. After the interview, when they're interviewing Kelvin Sampson, it was really, to me, heartwarming to see him praise God in an interview. And unlike most players that will do that, you very seldom see coaches do that. And him doing that, to me, was humble. It was bringing him right back down to earth. And he moved up a notch or two in my book as a human being.
I wonder if
he did a pre-game interview with the Charles Barkley and that crew, and I thought it was an amazing interview. That a lot of people probably missed it because it was prior to the game, but it was really incredible. I was really taken by him. I've always liked him anyway, but it was great. And then what you said, Mark, is absolutely true.
Yes.
I was wondering if psychologically, and maybe there's some professional psychologists out there who can answer the question. When Duke was up by that 14 points that late, and even the 9 points, let's go back to 14. You pretty much figure you've got the game won, and there's some sort of human tendency, natural tendency to sort of relax a little bit and just say, let's just play out the game and we'll go on to Monday night. And then all of a sudden you start making the mistakes and Houston comes back. It's very difficult, I think, in that situation to get that kind of intensity that you played with for 35 minutes to get back for the most crucial 2 minutes of the game.
Let me ask this question. They did play in the ACC, softer conference, and they didn't have a lot of games that went down to the wire like this.
Nope.
Toy Poodle League.
Now, is that possible that could have affected them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. They were, like you said, and that's part of the whole. It's not just about them being young, Jim. It's about, like you just said, it's about not being in a lot of close games. Look, Houston was even in a much tougher league. The Big 12 wasn't the Big 12 from a couple of years ago, but it's still a tough league.
I think Shire alluded to that in his post-game interview about the fact that they hadn't been challenged as much in the conference schedule. They didn't quite use those words, but I think he alluded to it.
I love that Kelvin Sampson called it a Toy Poodle League. And look, here's the deal with Duke, and we've said this previewing the game. They were about to see an animal that they hadn't seen. Virginia's defense wasn't Virginia's defense this past year. That's the only team that really tries to grind you. The ACC was down, and Duke steamrolled through the rest of the tournament with a ridiculous margin of victory. Analytics loved them. I think they were number 2 all time on the Pomeroy rankings on efficiency between offensive and defensive efficiency, but you have to take the strength of schedule into account. And they ran into the one team that is going to make you work for 40 minutes, and they played for about 32.
Okay, so by the way, thanks to John Putnam.
He likes Andy. He ran it at the tape. He likes that comment.
Yeah. And regarding the second game, the first game that actually started it all, Florida came back. They were down at half against Auburn, but Florida had been there before. They had tough games that they had to go up against with Connecticut and Texas Tech, and that got them really prepared for this game against Auburn. And Auburn, I'm not sure what happened to them in the second half. Why do you guys think Auburn just did not look anywhere near like the team that they were in the first half?
They stopped going in the room.
I thought the turnovers were terrible. They're just sloppy.
They didn't have the look of the eye of the tiger.
It
second
seemed
half of
like
that basketball game.
they stopped going inside the broom a lot. I thought they should have gone inside to him more. I mean,
Florida made great adjustments at halftime, and they just took control right out of the locker room in the second half, and I think that stunned Auburn a little bit.
Yeah, but Florida still didn't double Broome. So, I mean, that's exactly the point. I thought they should have kept going to Broome, especially down the stretch. We still had a 1-point game with 5 minutes to go. And the bottom line is the game was there for both teams with about 3-4 minutes left. Auburn had a couple of clean looks that they missed, and Walter Clayton didn't miss, and he put the game away with that great play.
That kid's amazing. That Clayton kid.
Did you notice how facially there's a little resemblance to Mahomes?
A little bit. He's Stephen Curry too, because
that's it. He's a mini Curry. That's what he is.
And the light complexion too. So and
the smile and all that, the smile and the facial expressions.
Well, Auburn actually, out of all four teams, they had the worst 3-point shooting in this Final Four. They only shot 28%. Duke actually was 41%, but they only attempted 17. And again, Florida out-rebounded Auburn as well. As you mentioned, Clayton had a big game. But I agree with you, Mark. It was interesting watching the end of that game and seeing it just looked like Florida. It's a classic take. They wanted it more.
Yes.
They were just aggressive. They were after every loose ball. They were just all over the place. Like they knew they were playing in a Final Four. Auburn was playing like they were just in a regular game.
Yep.
Florida played with a sense of urgency and desperation down the stretch. Auburn couldn't match it.
Okay, so now we've got the championship game. And right now, I believe it is 1 Florida. Is that what the prognosis is around the country?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it opened the other side. I know it did, but
okay.
Houston was 1.5 on the first line. I saw.
Okay. So
obviously their money is not.
But that was only for the Jim Feists of the world to be able to bet. Okay.
That may be true.
Yeah.
I actually saw.
First number I saw was the 1.5.
Florida
was 1.5.
Yeah, and we immediately went to 1.
You might have been privy to that initial line before most.
Yeah.
So go ahead and let's wrap this up.
But I swear I didn't bet. I didn't bet it.
Let's wrap this up.
I didn't bet anything yet.
Well, let's get everybody's opinion on the game, the championship game tomorrow night. Jim, why don't we start off with you? What do you think about the game tomorrow night?
You know, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I can't switch gears now. I like Calvin Sampson. I like the experience. You got the young coach versus the old coach. I do realize that Florida's going to have a little bit of an advantage because they had a little bit more rest, but it's not that big a deal. These are kids. They're strong. The coaching experience is big for me. And I picked Houston in the beginning. So, and we actually, Greg, you and I don't know how the hell we did this, but we actually had this game picked weeks ago. But I'm going to stick with Houston.
Mark?
Well, I'll tell you a little story here. Victor King is in Vegas right now, and he texted me after the game a picture of his ticket that he bet on Houston. He played them for a dime at Circa, and he says, "Thanks a lot, boss. Great call on Houston." And I texted him back and I said, "I'm glad that ticket wasn't torn to shreds and you had a chance to send it to me." I think the bottom line here to me in this game, though, from a handicapping standpoint, guys, is there are 7 statistical categories that I chart. Florida owns the edge in 4 of them, but the ones that Houston owns the edge in are the most important in this contest here. Scoring defense is what it's all about. Also, 3-point field goal offensive percentage, which Houston owns the number 1 team in the country, by the way. And also, Houston is the number 1 team in field goal percentage defensively. Those are the three main caveats that I'm looking for when I'm looking and handicapping a basketball game. To me, the bottom line is this. In the playbook preview guide, March Madness, we talked about this earlier, those 7 elite elements that qualified 20 of the last 22 NCAA tournament winners. There were 6 teams that qualified this year. There are only 1 left, and that happens to be the Houston Cougars. I'm not hopping off a winning horse right now. I'm staying with the Houston Cougars with Jim in this basketball game. And if they stay the dog, remember that stat. Now this is only the 3rd time in 3 years they'll be the underdog, and they've won the other 2 straight up.
Yeah, John reminds us as well, because he remembers you said exactly that, Mark, on Friday.
Cool.
Regarding Houston, had only been a dog 1 time, and that was at Kansas this year in the last 3 years. And so that's now 2 dogs last 3 years, and they've won both games. So we'll have to follow that line for sure.
Both teams played very tough games. They both won very tough games. Yes, the Houston game was absolutely a miracle the way it ended. Does that take anything away from them? I don't know. Probably yes, probably no, and I don't know how to put a measurement on it, but I think these kids are so resilient. And the physicality, I mean, I think you guys probably know better than I, but the one is a really up and down team, and the other one is a very physical team. And now Florida has size, and like John Putnam just wrote, they have the size just like Duke had the size. But in the end, it was the tenacity, a little bit of luck here and there, of course, good coaching, yes, and the physicality that, I mean, the way Houston works out, and these kids are like buff weightlifters, for God's sake. They're big. I mean, but they're not tall. They don't have the height advantage here.
They had the athleticism.
Kelvin Sampson's biggest challenge has nothing to do with game plans. It's going to be in telling the kids, you got to forget about the way you came back Saturday night, because it's so natural to expect a letdown and the exuberance that they showed after the game as if they had won the national championship right then and there. His biggest challenge is going to be saying, hey, forget about what happened Saturday. You can celebrate that after you win Monday night, but let's focus on Monday night. You got to put that behind you. It's just another win, because it doesn't mean a thing if you don't win tonight, or meaning tomorrow night against Florida. So I think that's going to be as big a challenge as anything. They can break down film and know what they need to do, who they have to stop. That's going to be the easy part of it. It's going to be able to maintaining your composure through 40 minutes and not get into the situation they were in against Duke, where they have to come back in the final 2-3 minutes, because I don't think that would happen against Florida, even though they'll have the confidence to do. Florida will also be prepared for that. By the way, did want to make a point for people who, it's always a situation. If you've got a ticket on Houston, the question is, should you or should you not hedge by laying a very slight money line price with Florida? And that really depends upon your risk profile. I've maintained, when you're doing this all day, if you come in to Vegas, let's say once a year, and you make a future bet on the Minnesota Vikings, yeah, you probably let it ride and all that. But if you're doing this every day and it's a part of your income stream, you do have to think about what the goal is. And the goal is to show a profit at the end of every transaction. The risk in getting to the championship game, you've overcome the risk. Now you can guarantee yourself a profit depending upon whether or not you want to play it. And so I think that that's something to consider. Again, if you're doing this every day, the bottom line is I want every transaction to show a profit. The gamble is in getting a position to guarantee yourself a profit, although it means your return will be less, because you've got to spend part of your potential profit on protecting a profit.
Well said, Andy. And I want to jump on one more point, Andy, to what you said. Kelvin Sampson's talked to his basketball team about forgetting about the game that they just won. You can rest assured he'll remind his team that there is now a 1-game season. That's exactly what it'll be.
In Andy's point about the hedging, now if you had like a 3 or 4 point line, there's possibilities of hedging and winning both sides of the game. Yeah. In this particular event, you don't. Now, if you bet Houston in the beginning and you got odds, which you would have gotten good odds to win it, well, on any team to win it from the beginning, you would have a big payoff on the Houston side and no payoff on Florida. So in this case, you would probably want to hedge. Andy's point is excellent. Unless you're a fan of Florida or Houston and you're not in, if you're looking to make money, which the five of us are, we would want to guarantee at least the profit. And
by the way, Jim, just to your point, offsetting the fact that if it were a 4 or 5 point spread, you could possibly middle by taking the points, or doing it the other way, I guess, with Florida being favored. The money line, because it's basically a pick'em game, is as cheap as you're going to get. It's basically like it's almost pick'em. The other thought you could do also is you could lay Florida -1, but what if Florida wins by 1? Then your Houston ticket is lost. So I think the money line would be the way to go. And you're probably laying. I've seen between -110 and -120 on Florida now.
There are other ways you can actually do in-game, like an in-game parlay, like the side and total. Or we do. I'm not going to dump on this right now, but there's a women's championship game. You could tease the championship game from one day to the next and do that too. There's lots of ways of doing it. You don't have to stand with your, sit on your hands. There's different ways to manipulate the whole thing and try to do something creative. But coming out with a profit, like Mark and Andy said, for me, that's the ideal situation.
And you couldn't be in a better
all
position.
About the leeway you have, because obviously, if you took Houston pre-tournament, I believe that was 8-1 or higher. If
I was going to say about 7 or 8, yeah.
Yeah, if you took Florida pre-tournament, it was considerably lower. Either way, though, I agree with Andy. Right now, you take the avenue where you're guaranteeing yourself money, so that gives you more to play with. If hedge-wise, if you're on Houston pre-tourney and have to do Florida, then the opposite way. And as far as Kelvin, interesting, Kelvin Sampson would be the oldest to win an NCAA tournament title at 69. And Golden at the youngest at 39. So 3 decades of experience in between those two. And then one other thing is that we have, an instance where you have veteran guards. You have veteran guards. LJ Cryer's already won a championship, and Milo Suzan is coming off a brutal game. So I don't think there will be a hangover effect from the Duke win.
That's a great point, Tony.
My pick, I didn't give the pick. My pick is Houston. And by the way, Golden would be the youngest coach since '83, and Valvano, who I think was a couple of years
Right,
ago.
yes, correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
same age.
So Mark has Houston, Andy has Houston. Tony?
I have not made my determination yet. Houston was in my final, my national championship. Florida wasn't. But at the same time, got to look at a few things. I think it's going to be a very even game. And I will say this, to give out a free play, I think Uzan beats his points, rebounds, assists prop, which there'll be tons of those available. I think he had 7, 4, and 3 in this game. He was absolutely terrible. A Las Vegas native, by the way. And he was the key to the season, I thought, letting LJ Cryer play off the ball, letting Sharp be a shooter. The fact that Cryer had to play the point in that first half because he got into immediate foul trouble was one reason why they struggled until late. I think Uzan will give them, especially since Florida doesn't have quite the defense that I thought Duke brought to the table. I think Uzan will have a better game. So give me his points, rebounds, and assists to the over.
And that's why I thought coming into the Final Four, the winner of Duke Houston would win the title because of the defense of both of these teams being better than that of the, it's easier to slow a team down than to speed an opponent up because the opponent has to cooperate in the speeding up.
And speaking of the total, it's 141. Before I let everybody go, does anyone have a total play? Because this is going to be two different paces.
I'll start with just one quick reminder. I thought Duke would have issues with Houston because they hadn't seen a team like Houston before. Florida won't have that problem because they play in the same conference as Tennessee. Houston won't have that problem with Florida because everybody in the Big 12 wants to go as fast as Florida will want. From that standpoint, I think you see a faster paced game. I like the over.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, before we get out of here, I've got to put you on record here as well. And I know what side you're going to. Let our listeners know who you're backing in this championship game.
Yeah, I
by the way,
Florida.
Greg, and if you're hedging, by the way, also.
Yes, 100%. I have actually already hedged on a couple other things, like a couple of parlays too. So with Rory McIlroy, by the way, to win the Masters. So if that'll, but actually it is necessary for Florida to win, for that parlay to kick in. But yeah, I did have Florida a few months ago at 17-1. I don't know. I just saw something really special about this team, and a little luck along the way, no question about it. But it feels great whenever you pick a future. And we talked about the future process actually about a month or so ago. We were going over this very situation. Should just, if you pick a future, is that the way to go compared to,
rolling it over?
Rolling it over. So we actually even have a video, I believe, regarding that on the channel to check that out. So there's different strategies to that, but. I just saw something special about this Florida team. There's so much to like about them. They have everything you're looking for. I think the one thing, though, that I am nervous about is the coaching difference, and just the fact that the way Houston won, and they've been there so many times and haven't won before. Is that are they that team of destiny thing that kind of worries me the most? I think they're a better team, but the team of destiny thing, we've seen it happen a lot in college basketball.
I will say something about the coaching. I mean, I'm on Houston. I'm on Sampson. I've been a fan of his for a long time. But I will say this about Florida's coach. He's young, yes, and 30 years difference with Sampson. But he made better halftime adjustments in the game against Auburn than Bruce Pearl did. And I was very impressed with that. So even though we talk about their ages and experience, he did a hell of a job.
Both of those young coaches, Golden and Shire, have great futures in this game. They could be at their institutions for 30 years if they want.
Do you think if they win the national championship, does Sampson retire?
What's he, 69?
Yeah.
I'll take that. I think that's a real distinct possibility unless he's promised some recruits. One of the top forwards in the country is coming to Houston. But that being said, Kellen Sampson, his son, has been the coach in waiting for a really long time. So maybe he passes the torch.
Either that, but how do you pass up an opportunity to go for a back-to-back? Just ask John Elway if he's glad that he didn't retire after the first win.
If you watch the interview, pre-game interview that they had, he talked about bringing his whole family together when he was offered the Houston job. And he brought his daughter and his son and everybody else. So that's a family event there. The whole thing. I don't know that he would leave that.
Yeah.
Well, again, I don't think he would. I don't think he'd have to, because Kellen is going to be the next coach at Houston. But one thing, look, Kelvin Sampson in the late 1990s, early 2000s was villainized. I mean, the fact that we're here in 2025 talking about what a feel-good story is, and I love Kelvin Sampson, but it just speaks to the different cultures and climate in college basketball, because he did cheat. But I mean, great coach at Washington State, at Oklahoma, at Indiana. Got caught up in the phone scandal, which now would be like trivial. So wonderful to see him do well.
Yeah, the things that he cheated on, quote unquote, cheated on, are now permissible today.
Yeah.
Funny how
there's a lot of things
change.
Yeah.
By the way, for the good.
Yes. Well, yes, Jim. The world has changed a lot outside of the basketball courts the last 20 and 30 years. Can't do or say things.
Into this, and I don't even know if anybody wants me to bring it up, but there is a ladies' championship today. I'm on UConn. I'm a big fan. I know Tony is too, of the women's sports, especially basketball, and I love the way they're playing. Paige Breckers is amazing. Of course, their coach is amazing as well. What a record he's had. But I'm on UConn today to win it.
What's
Didn't
the line?
South Carolina beat UConn earlier this year?
Yes.
I'm sorry. UConn beat South Carolina, I think, earlier this year.
Well, they play. I think UConn's got. I mean, South Carolina's got 3 losses. So I think that's accurate. But, we got Oriema versus Staley for a national championship. I mean,
what's the line in the game?
Must-see TV.
I saw what, 6?
6.5.
Yeah.
Who's favorite?
UConn.
UConn.
And UConn as the number 2 seed is favored over 1-seeded South Carolina.
Wow.
Who was perfect last year. So.
And Jim's going with UConn and the 6.5. So
I wouldn't lay those points, but I think UConn wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. That's our last preview for the college basketball season here on ProLine TV. It's been a lot of fun. I know we've had a lot of chalk. But I know you guys did some reading, and I did some too, of what's to come here. Hopefully we're going to get some news in the next several weeks regarding whether or not things are going to change with the NIL. And either way, it looks like it's going to. And if it does, maybe we won't see chalk next year. I don't know. I mean, I guess we're going to find out, and we'll talk more about it here on Proline TV as soon as the decisions and the court cases are all done. That's something we should be hearing real soon. This week on the show, on Wednesday's Playbook podcast, we are going to have Hall of Fame golfer Jan Stevenson joining us.
Nice.
In the first segment of the show, she's going to talk about Augusta National. She's obviously been there a bunch of times. She knows the course. We're going to talk a little bit about who she likes and who we like for the Masters. Don't forget, we're going to preview the Masters on Tuesday. Jan will also be on that show on our weekly golf show. It's Brady Cannon's last show. He's going to be there to preview the show along with Jan, with Jared Smola, my golf analyst from the last few years. So 4 of us are going to talk about the Masters on Tuesday right here on Proline TV. And then we start talking about summer sports here on Proline TV on Wednesdays. That includes a lot of baseball talk. And I know you guys, Andy is going to be joining you, Tony, on Monday. Jim and Tony, of course, have already posted a couple of baseball shows. But the 2 of you are going to record a baseball show on Monday. Is that correct?
Correct,
Yes.
Andy. Let's go tomorrow. Andy
morning.
can be on whenever he wants. And Mondays and Thursdays, please watch our baseball previews. Mondays looks ahead at Monday night, but mostly Tuesday to Thursday games, and Thursdays.
And I will get to you, Tony, later today with a time for tomorrow morning.
Hey, Greg, before we get out of here, I want to say this, that be sure to watch our show Wednesday. Jan Stevenson, beautiful woman, still a sight for sore eyes. Very, very knowledgeable about the game of golf. You're going to really appreciate what you see and hear from her. And also, I need to wish Jim Feist a very happy anniversary this weekend. He's joined us from his anniversary, taking time out to join us. That's really, really cool. I want to also tell you to tell the same for Roz. And Jim, I know you know how special Roz is, but there's a saying about you kind of married out of your league. It's maybe not so much you married out of your league, but she's really, truly a beautiful person.
I definitely outkicked my coverage. That's for sure.
Hope you're having a great time out there.
Thank you.
Yes, and also don't forget, we're going to be getting into the Kentucky Derby on Proline TV too with the Playbook podcast. We're going to have our thoroughbred handicapper John Hardoon is going to join the show. Of course, we just finished doing some of our Kentucky Derby prep previews, the last big ones. And there's one big race to go, and that's the Bluegrass, which has been postponed till Tuesday because of weather. So check that out. We already have a video on that if you want to wager on the Bluegrass Stakes. And then, of course, we're going to be covering the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, the NFL drafts coming up later this month as well. So you want to subscribe here to Proline TV. We're going to cover everything important in the world of sports. And let us know what's on your mind. And anything that you can share with us, questions, comments, we really appreciate it. So for everybody here, the panel.
And by the way, Greg, just to mention, it's just in over a moment, NFL draft, you can now bet on that almost anywhere. A lot of different propositions. But
Yes.
also be aware that because of the nature of what's involved, a lot of books cut off wagering on the draft the night before the draft so that you can't follow the airplanes and who's coming in where on what jet on Thursday morning before the draft. So you can wager on it, but beware of potential early deadlines.
That's interesting.
And Tony's already got a bet in. So he already did a short from our show the other day. You already have your top 3, right, Tony?
Yeah, the bet's not in. The idea is in because I haven't seen a number on it, but it's an exact order 1, 2, 3. Look at that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Looks like
That's
Fort
Laguna.
Lauderdale.
We're in Laguna. This is the Montage Hotel, and that is the ocean.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
That's a dream working environment right there.
Beautiful.
Oh my God.
Hey, guys, I got to run out of here. Nice to join you guys. I look forward to visiting with you on Wednesday, and everybody enjoy the game.
Yes.
All right,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Take
We'll
care. Have
see you in a
great
few
Sunday.
days.
Thank you.
Take
Good luck,
care, guys.
everybody.
Thank
See
you.
y'all.